my friends and enemies. Glad you are here. Um, it's just a bit of a weird one because I'm all by myself. I'm not usually by myself because I don't usually have time to make them by myself because everything important that happens usually requires multiple inputs of people's voices and whatnot. But I figured since I'm the one who's the most interested in this topic, I'm probably the one who talks about it. I know, shocker. Um, It's also a bit of an apology video since I kind of screwed up my last upload and I lost the information, so I cannot upload it. Um, and there is a poll in the community post thingy. If you would like to go there and tell me whether or not I should redo it again or not, but I will do it by myself as opposed to taking up other people's time, since the time I have to do anything with the Council of the Light is always limited to 1 day a week and at a particular time period. So I don't want to scuff anyone's time more than I already do. So I will probably do it by myself. If you would like me to still do it, it's kind of a crapshoot, so I won't worry too much about it unless you guys want me to do it, I suppose. I don't know. I'm kind of torn. Either way, this is a totally different non-related video to that one, so we'll just go ahead and do this one. The Nintendo Direct was pretty good. I mean, they kind of scuffed it on their own side, at least in North America. It worked apparently in the UK and other places, but they had a little technical difficulties during some of the presentations, so he missed out Enter the Gungeon 2 and a couple other things. But they fixed it eventually, although the sound was kind of off, and I think I mentioned it in the video, so you can go back and watch that live stream if you would like to. I will post a link to it in the description here. But I had some thoughts about a bit of pretty much everything that's going on in the world and everyone's opinions on everything. There's a lot of weird stuff that's unusual behavior. One, which is kind of the obvious one, is the console is more than the prior console. So Switch 2 is more expensive than Switch 1, first gen. Shocking, I suppose. But there is a reason for it, and I can understand that reason, even though it's still, I mean, consoles are expensive, like in general. Like, I waited years before I got a PS5, and it was still $400. um, but you can get a Switch for usually 300, 250 used, or something like that. Sometimes even 200 used, depending on who you get it from. You can get the Switch Lights for like 150, 180 bucks, either new or used. It's like they're super cheap. And I'm at the point where maybe they should have just made two versions, and maybe they should have made a home console and a portable console. That way you have the hardware in two pieces, and people can decide whether or not they want to buy one or the other or both. Maybe offer a bundle for both. And that way those who just stay home to play games can have their console and not worry about taking it anywhere. Or the people who don't have a console at home, don't want a console at home because they're always on the road or on the go, and they just like, I'm traveling all the time, I'm going to school, I'm going to airport to fly somewhere or something, like whatever the case might be. I want to take this with me for whatever reason it might be. You could do that. You could put them in the same console, but then if you have a dedicated system, it can do a lot more than what a handheld is capable of doing at this particular time and the way the technology is done. So is the $450 price mark worth it? Technically speaking, yes. The Switch 1, we got 32 gigabytes. The Switch 2, we're getting, I think it was 256 gigabytes. So 4 times the actual hard drive space, or I guess, yeah. And that in itself is worth probably quite a bit of money, but if they're ordering on bulk, maybe it isn't. I don't know. They're getting it straight from the manufacturers. There's no middleman. They are the middleman between us and the manufacturer. So maybe it's not worth as much. Maybe it's 10, 15 bucks for them, where it'd be like 50 or 100 bucks for us. Probably only 50. But if you consider this, and I say 50 or 100 if it was like an actual hard drive, not if it's the small stuff. If you consider it this way, now you can play in 1080p, which the Switch couldn't do really. I think docked could do 1080 to some extent, sometimes, maybe if you're lucky. But handheld, it wouldn't do that. So now you get to play 120 frames per second at 1080p on the handheld, and or speaking on the docked. I don't know if the docked will let you play 1080p instead of 4K, so you can get the 120 frames per second and still be able to play like moderately well. I have no idea. I was hoping they would do 1080p. I was like, they really need to do 1080p. I didn't expect them to do 4K, so that's a pleasant surprise. There wasn't a whole lot that like really popped up in my freaking video because, reasons. Anyway, sorry about that. There is the system looks better. Let's put it that way. The system is the same thickness as the Switch One, but instead of sliding your Joy-Cons, they snap in and out, which personally I like, because the slide bar, I feel like I break it half the time trying to get it off, or you put it accidentally on the wrong one, and all hell breaks loose. So magnets are really nice. Steel buttons is nice because it's harder to break, damage. Them being my actual mouse controllers, I think all of this will add up to be a price point in which it's beyond. Now, there's two sides to every coin, unless it's a one-sided coin, which is weird. But where you had the Switch One, in the time in which it was released, its value may or may not equate to what it is valued for the Switch 2. Now, I don't know. I'm not that smart when it comes to the money changing aspect, or the, what was it then, what is it now, value differences. I usually need Sage for that kind of stuff. But let's assume for a moment that they are in fact roughly estimate similar. You're getting much more bang for your buck for the Switch 2 than you are the Switch. You get a fan in the dock, which keeps it cool, and presumably because you're playing in 4K, more than likely, it's going to get really, really hot. You're not playing 4K in your handheld because it would probably explode in your hands. But at the same time, the Switch, like my Switch, had a fan issue. That's like a $70 fix where I'm at. So is it valuable enough to do that? And then when I was waiting for the Switch 2 to come out, I have this fan issue. I'm like, should I pay $70 to get my Switch 1 fixed? Or should I wait until the Switch 2 comes out, which in this case would be only a couple months from now, 2 months, minus 2 days, and I could just buy a Switch 2 and not have to worry about using my Switch 1. But then we come to the next problem, aside from pricing. Backwards compatibility. My biggest concern, and I have this concern with every console or anything entirely, like even for PC, because obviously if you grew up in the era of the 90s like I did or something, PC games like MechWarrior 2, one of the greatest games ever created, it aged like polygons. And that's a joke because it's literally polygons everywhere. But it's a fantastic soundtrack. It's fire. Chef's kiss. But it doesn't run on anything like... I don't know if it ran on 95 or 98 or anything like that, because it came out like, I think, before both of those. And it was really difficult to play. It's still difficult to play because you got to find a virtual thing. And I think it works possibly on Windows 7. Like they did a whole backwards compatibility thing. And that's kind of what I want, because like that or GOG. I want GOG to take it and freshen it up a little bit because it was a fun game. I have lots of good nostalgic memories with it. Although I have no doubts it will look terrible in modern comparisons, because if you compare like a Titanfall game or a MechWarrior 5 to a MechWarrior 2, it's not going to be comparable in that regard. However, it is rich in nostalgia, and the sensation from the music is just fire. I listen to that soundtrack all the flipping time, pretty much at least a couple times a week, just because it's a fantastic one. And you can even find the updated versions where somebody took it and kind of like remixed it and made it sound a little bit different, but it's much better like fullness to it. And that's saying a lot considering the first one's got pretty nice fullness to it. But point being, backwards compatibility isn't just locked into consoles; it's also for PC. PlayStation, if PlayStation 5 had backwards compatibility for all their games, I think I would fall in love with PlayStation because there's a lot of games in PlayStation 2 and PlayStation 3 and even PlayStation 1 that I'd love to get my hands on, but I don't have a PS1, PS2, or PS3. Highland Fear. I do have a PS4, which was my first PlayStation ever, and I'm not a fond of things like the dual system here. It doesn't feel comfortable doing this as much as it feels like this. Like your basic Xbox controller. So with the Xbox controller being better in my opinion, and it's a replica, like Nintendo and Microsoft basically replicated everything and just swapped the keys. I still think that's stupid. Like any company should be able to make anything. If they want to make it exclusively to their system, that's whatever. But it shouldn't freaking matter. It's just more confusing that way. And everyone's like, well, it needs to be for my system because I want you to buy my system. Like, well, I'm not going to buy your system because it's confusing. You're literally being a block between me and purchasing your product because I don't like how you have this put together. So I would rather not. But I finally broke down and was like, well, I want to play Ghost of Tsushima really bad. And I saw it, I was like, I need to play this game. So I went out and I bought it, I think for like 120 bucks or 150 bucks for the slim 1 terabyte. And it was pretty good, right? But in terms of playability, I mean, I played it a lot. But then they're like, we're going to play we're going to announce Stellar Blade. I'm like, now I have to get a PlayStation 5. So I looked and I looked and I looked and I didn't play Stellar Blade for a long time after it was released because I just couldn't find a PS5 that wasn't ridiculously overly priced. And I had to have the disc drive. I don't play this no disc drive nonsense. They should get rid of everything with no disc drive. If you want to make it downloadable, by all means make it downloadable. Do not make a freaking discless console. That's for cowards and a bunch of words I'm not going to say online. I wouldn't even probably utter them in person, personally. I have standards. But when it comes to things like wanting to play it, I had to wait, and I finally broke down and I spent $400 on it. Used, but it was from a local game store that cleans it up, make sure everything's running properly, and have like really nice warranties and stuff on it for like if it breaks within a certain time period or has any problems, you can take it back. Haven't had any problems with it. Totally happy with it. Love my game store. But I got that so I could play Stellar Blade. It plays PlayStation 4 games. It does not play 3, 2, or 1. And the only way I can play PlayStation 3, 2, and 1 in a single console is if I get a PlayStation 3 first gen, which are virtually impossible to find, if not outrageously expensive. So I can't play it. And that's heartbreaking to me because I'm a gamer and I like to play games. I mean, if you can't see all the games here, I one day need to show you my tower of video games that I have on the other side of the basement. And because this is my computer / YouTube corner, and I have much more stuff that way. I've got books. I've got, well, you can kind of see some of my manga, game guides. I like collecting game guides because they're just cool, and I like to find all the little details and little nitbit things and all that jazz. I've got a whole bunch of collectible, like my Pokemon Yellow box and everything. I've got a horde of Lord of the Rings guides and games for both Game Boy Advance and for PC, as well as the ones I have also, because I have literally Lord of the Rings for virtually everything. If they made a copy of Lord of the Rings for some console or for PC, I'm pretty sure I have it, with the exception of a couple that I have a hard time finding. Still looking, but they're hard time, like War of the Ring and stuff like that. By the way, Battle for Middle Earth 1 and 2 plus expansion, Rise of the Witch King. Best PC games ever. And 2 comes with basically a Risk version where you go into the actual game. I'm getting ahead of myself. Sorry, I get really distracted when it comes to Lord of the Rings. So, I've got a whole bunch of stuff. I've got an anime tower with some my Lord of the Rings movie collection, which is a lot. And then I have my game tower and my old consoles and my new consoles. I have a whole surround sound system and everything set up because I'm a gamer. I like games. I'll probably take a picture and put it on community post or something like that. I don't know. I haven't figured it out yet. Maybe we'll do a tour when I clean up everything. I have a 4-year-old that runs down here like a maniac, and I have a board game table that's stacked to the high heavens. But don't you know that when you're an adult, you don't really have friends, and when you have friends, they're too busy to do anything because all adults are too busy to do anything. I'm too busy to play the games that I want to play. It's a problem. So maybe one day when I can figure out where to stream to, and I can maybe dedicate one day a week or something to just streaming, I will stream games and I will play the snot out of them. I have a freaking 50-inch TV literally right here. I just touched it, if that helps you any. It's literally just right here with my PlayStation 5 attached, so I can play Stellar Blade, Ghost of Tsushima. I have a bunch of games that I just picked up. I think I just got Spider-Man 1 for like $5 because somebody was selling it used, and I was like, I wouldn't pay $30 for it, but I'll pay $5 for it. And I think I got the Disney. I think I already moved them. Dang it. I got like the Disney classics with like I think it was Lion King, Aladdin, and I can't remember what the third one is, but it's like a 3-in-1 game of classics, like the side scroller, 2D type stuff of the old stuff. I think there's like the old originals and then like the remastered versions of them. I got that for like $5. I've gotten Ratchet and Clank and a whole bunch of stuff that I want to play that I never grew up playing PlayStation because I didn't have a PlayStation. And most of my friends didn't have PlayStations. We had Xboxes. My Xbox One or my Xbox original died, sadly. So it doesn't work. My Xbox 360 works, but anything I can run on my Xbox 360, I can run on my Xbox One. But my Xbox One won't update because of Microsoft being retarded. So thanks for that, Microsoft. But I was looking into getting an Xbox Series X because it has full backwards compatibility. Why is this not normal? Why is the Switch 2 not backwards compatible even with the Switch? Let alone with the entire wall of just all the handheld games. They have a Nintendo eShop. It's literally downloadable games. Do you know how easy that is to transfer over? The Switch is literally touchscreen. Make a controller with a touchscreen on it. If you want to play it, like sell it for like exclusively a DS type game thing or whatever, and then they could see and then touch with the other one. I'm literally throwing just ideas out there that could make you big bucks. Or make it so you can connect your DS to your Switch and play off of that. It's literally, you don't even have to pay anything. It's just software. Let people already go out there and fight each other to death for stuff you don't even make anymore. You don't sell them. You don't make them. Just, there's a whole library out there. People are just killing each other for physical stuff. So just, it's that simple. It's a money-making machine. But I have this feeling that Nintendo doesn't care what happens outside of Japan because they only care about Japan, which, sure enough, have respect for that. Like, care about your own country, I guess. But, like, your own country cannot fund you the way the entire world can fund you. Like, you're not selling 127 million or 150 million or 200 million or however many freaking Switches and stuff have been sold. You're not selling that just in Japan. You don't have the means to sell that in just Japan. You'd sell a couple million or maybe 10 million or maybe 50 million. You ain't selling 200 million in just Japan. But it's a ridiculous concept that you can't just take a digital system, aka the eShop. And the same thing goes for the Wii U and the Wii. All of those systems, they're shut down. You can't access them. You don't have them. Now, what happens if you have just digital games on those systems? Well, guess what? At some point, they're going to shut those servers down because, from what I understand, you can't actively purchase anything from them, but you can download them continuously afterwards. We also know from Sony, who's also one of the biggest dinguses in the courtyard, they can just have you pay them $60 for something and say, sorry, we don't have access to your library anymore. Have a nice day. And they get your $60. You don't get your product you bought because you didn't buy it. You licensed it. Even though it said buy, it said purchase. It did not say rent. It did not say license. It's stupid. And personally, I think they should get sued out of the wazoo for that until they fix it or whatever. And I think if you offer digital games, you must, this is the most powerful must you could possibly ever do. You must keep those servers open forever. I don't care if it's not financially suitable for you or viable for you. You made it that way. You took people's money to make it that way. You saved a ton of money not making physical product. You need to freaking keep that game up there. Or, if that is not the case, you can have a whole bunch of empty cartridges with the information of those things on that you can send out to somebody and they can download it themselves or send them the physical game, whatever the case may be. They've already paid the price that you asked for. So I'm a physical game person. So this is all really annoying to me. Now, Xbox Series X didn't sell very well, didn't perform very well, a lot of issues, but it's got upscale 1080p, I think, for older games, and it has full backwards compatibility. That alone makes me want to buy it. Literally just the backwards compatibility. I don't even care about Xbox Series X games. I just want the backwards compatibility because I have a ton of Xbox games because I grew up on Xbox. That was my jam. I had a Nintendo 64. I had an Xbox original. And then I got Xbox 360. I didn't really have a GameCube until much later in life. I didn't have a Wii. I did buy a Wii U. That was one of the first systems I bought when I moved out on my own. Was a Wii U. The first one I ever bought was an Xbox 360, I believe. No, it was the original Xbox. No, it was the 360. I bought it from a friend, and I paid with my own money. My parents didn't buy it for me. I paid with my own money to buy it from him and played the snot out of Halo 3. But, I grew up on Nintendo, and I played Sega a lot, but that was because somebody else had it, and I could go over their house and play it with them. But I played Xbox and Nintendo at my place. We didn't have PlayStation. I didn't desire a PlayStation because everything on PlayStation I could play somewhere else. Xbox had 4 controllers that could hook up, and PlayStation only had 2 unless you bought an extra thingy, and then you had to have people who wanted to play with you, blah, 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 a whole bunch of stuff. So me and my friends, we played Xbox, pretty much exclusively Xbox, because it was more multiplayer. It was more mature, where PlayStation seemed to be more teenager, and then Nintendo was more kids and party mode. Lots of fantastic games on all the systems, technically speaking. I just had no interest in PlayStation because I had Xbox and I had Nintendo. Xbox comes out, makes dumb decision after dumb decision, and then decides, we're going to make this thing, which didn't do very well, but we're going to make it backwards compatibility, full backwards compatibility. That's freaking great. And if PlayStation 6 comes out and says, we have full backwards compatibility on this, everything's going to be physical, there'll be no digital only things. You can have digital, but not digital. Digital only. That would be fantastic. You don't understand. I would buy the snot out of the PS6, and I would buy every freaking PlayStation game I could get my hands on that I was interested in playing, even the really, really expensive ones. A lot of this stuff up here is really, really expensive because they're collectibles or rare. Like, I don't know if you can see. Sorry. You got Tears of the Kingdom Collector's Edition, Breath of the Wild Collector's Edition, Beta 1, 2, and 3 Collector's Editions, Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic for Switch, that was a pretty penny. I've got Knights of the Old Republic 2 for Switch, Force Unleashed for Switch. This is Nier Replicant. I have, which you can't really see, but right there's Nier Automata, the white box / black box thing. Those are all really expensive. I've got I gotta figure out my fingers. What am I doing? Blood Rain. Sheesh, I'm losing my mind. The Blood Rain 1 and 2 magnetical connected boxes, mind you. I've got Legend of Zelda. I've got this, which is still in a container, like a plastic container, which is Star Wars Shadows of the Empire. Paid a little bit for that. I've got first editions of The Hobbit, still sealed. I've got first editions of the Histories of Middle Earth, J.R.R. Tolkien. freaking, obviously, Baldur's Gate 3 physical edition. I have some. That's just over here. That's not including the other side of the room and all the stuff I pumped in. And I also have a whole bunch of other collectibles and stuff that I have stacked up on the side that I don't have room to fit in the camera, because if I did, I'd be very, very small and you'd see all my stuff, which is cool. And I thought maybe I could get a green screen, drop it behind me, and then just have it like rotate between all the items I have. That'd be kind of cool. It'd be a very arduous project, and it would also probably be very annoying to you people who do watch. I mean, this is just my vinyl collection right here, and some of that vinyl collection is really expensive too. But yeah, there's a lot of expensive collectibles that I would get if there were backwards compatibility. Switch 2 does not have backwards compatibility fully. They have it for compatible Switch games. I don't know what that means. They did not give me a list. They did not tell me anything. Maybe that'll be something we get in the next month. Maybe that's something we get in the next 2 months. Maybe we'll get it right before it actually drops. But why not just have it? They're literally the same cartridge. One reads faster than the other. That's literally it. Besides being red, obviously. So red versus black. I don't care if, like, there's no logical explanation to say we're only doing a couple of these things. If you're not going to release it on the Switch 2, it needs backwards compatibility. Because people like me, which, let me see. I've got my doubles. So, Switch games. Some of them are missing at the moment because I have another thing. Switch games. I have a decent library of Switch games. Why would I go pay you $450 and then not be able to play my own library? Why would I not just keep playing the Switch instead of paying you for a Switch 2? Yes, being able to play at 1080s, nice. Will it work for Switch games to be able to play at that? I don't know. But will I at least be able to play them? Now, I wonder if this is because they want you to pay $80 a game, because $80 seems to be this dollar price point. $80, it doesn't seem that far-fetched for me, considering games have been $70 for so long, especially for PlayStation. Xbox, I think, eventually got there, but they were like $60 pretty consistently for Xbox for a long time, and PlayStation, I think, was always more expensive. But I think they also claimed that they had better quality games and stuff like that. Like they have better imaging and stuff, response time, and all that jazz. And then Nintendo's been notorious. Like if I go to my local game store, most of their Nintendo games are, $50 brand new, $60. Like they're pretty cheap, all things considering. So adding $20 or $30 to this kind of strikes me as odd. Because if there was actual hardware like differences, like, I mean, yeah, they read and write faster. Okay. That's going to be a standard though. That's not that's like across the board. It's not a special cartridge, so they should all be kind of the similar price. But the higher the price point for games, the less games people buy. And the less games people buy, you don't make as much. So like, okay, for example, if you have a game at $60 and you have another game at $60, that's two games for $120, right? You're still making profit on them, so no problems there. Or you could buy one game for $80 or two games for $120, obviously excluding tax. Why would I say I don't want more games, I want less games? That doesn't make logical sense, because as a gamer, I want more games. Now, I am a collector. I like to collect. So I have a lot. Not everyone's that way. I understand this. But more often than not, you have a kid who's like, Mom, Dad, buy me this game. They buy them that game. 3 days later, oh, another game came out. Buy me that game. They buy them that game. Next game come out. Blah, 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 blah. And it's just like, parents are eventually like, no, I just bought you 2-3 games. I'm not buying you any more this year. Well, now they got to wait until next year, or they get their birthday money, or they get their Christmas money, or whatever the case might be. Or maybe they get it for their birthday or for Christmas. You slow down the rate at which you can sell to make more money. Not to mention digital games. Like, digital games should be like half the price of physical, period, for literally anybody, whether it be PC, PlayStation, Xbox, whatever. For one, you're only licensing or renting. You're not purchasing. It's not a buy. You don't own it. You own access to it. Like, you're renting the space on the server. That's what you're renting. You're not actually paying for the game. Where physical, you are paying for the game. They can't come into your house and take the game. You can always play the game. But that's also a control issue for them, I'm assuming, is their main argument for PlayStation, Xbox, and Nintendo, or anybody else who makes consoles in the future. But let's also look at it from a different perspective. I can buy a $60 game. I can buy 3 for the price of 2 $80 games. And obviously, the further down you go, the more games I get at 60, the less games you sell at 80. Because it eventually will always just overwhelm it. A 3-2, and then eventually a 6-4, and then blah, 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 blah. You just keep going and keep going. Yeah, you might make more. And this is the same stupid thing with Hollywood. And Hollywood is really, really dumb. And it drives me nuts and up a wall. They want to make so much money, but they do such a poor job at it with a high budget when they can have a lower budget and do better with it, because they have to actually like be constrained. They can't just flippantly throw money around and waste it. Because when you have a limitation, people have to be better with the money. And when you have people who are better with the money, you get better products. It's the same reason you can't throw $1 bazillion at a school and kids' intelligence levels just would rise with the dollars you pay. Like, that's not how that works. You can throw all the money in the world at a single school. The kids' IQ will not just raise because you paid money. No. In fact, most of the time it goes down because they're wasting the money. They're spending it on things that don't matter and whatever. It's not for the kids' benefit. Same issue with Hollywood and other things, because ultimately speaking, you have this issue where I want to make more money. Oh, look, we made money. We made lots of money. Well, yes, but you could have made more money. For an example, I'll use Wizards of the Coast. Very few things I have good to say about Wizards of the Coast, or as I like to call them, Grand Wizards of the Coast. So, the white saviors over at the Grand Wizards of the Coast, which is an ironic statement. I mean, not really ironic. They do hate minority groups. They just make you think they don't. But, because they treat them poorly and think very little of them. But, when they came out with the Lord of the Rings Tales of Middle-earth set, I play Magic the Gathering. I have a little bundle of card decks right next to me. Yeah, my room's a mess. I understand. But there's a whole little bundle of stuff you could get. A bunch of collectible tins, and they can put them together, and like all these cards that if you put them together, they made this one big, giant panorama type of thing. I was excited off my rocker. I was going to jump out of my skin and buy literally a full playset of everything. Now, for those who are not aware, a full playset is 4. I was going to buy 4 of every card. Every single card. Then they decided to race swap people because the artists wanted to do virtue signal rather than give accurate comparisons to what the books were. I said, screw you. And I didn't buy a single card. And keep in mind, some of these cards are like $50 a piece plus. And I decided I'm not gonna buy a single one. I don't even go to my way to buy the ones that are even accurate. Like, they have an Arwen that's black, and they have an Arwen that's white, or they have a Mary that's white and then a Mary that's black. I don't even get the white versions and variations because I don't want to give Wizards of the Coast my money. Even if I want the card, I don't want to give them money. I got principles. I got standards. They've ruined that. They're like, oh, there's a second best-selling set we've ever had. Like, yes, because Lord of the Rings is freaking popular. But guess what? It would have been your number one, not by even a close pinch. It would have been a long shot, totally out of the world. It wouldn't have even been in the same freaking graph. It would have been entirely in a graph of its own, on a different planet, in a different solar system, in a different universe, through a multiverse portal. It would have been skyrocketed to high heaven if you had just done it justice. I was not intending for that to be pundit, but they didn't want to do that. So they lost money. They're like, oh, we made lots of money. I'm like, yes, but you would have made more money. So you obviously don't like money. You want to push agendas or whatever the case might be. I don't care about your agendas. I care about accuracy, especially for things I love and I care about. Because when I'm passionate about things, it's not like I thought about this the other day, and I thought it was kind of a stupid comparison, but it does kind of fit in the really weird grand scheme of things. Imagine you have a child. Now, I have two boys. Imagine if you have a child, and somebody comes in one day and takes your child and puts another child of literally any other race and says, this is your child. You would look at them like they were retarded. Because it's clearly not your choice, your child. Choice. Wasn't your choice either. But they say, oh no, you're a bigot because you don't like your child, in my case, your son. And it's like, but he's not my son. You swapped him out with somebody else entirely. He doesn't have any of the attributes. He doesn't have the same eye color. He doesn't have the same hair color. He doesn't have the same hairstyle. He doesn't behave the same way. He doesn't have the little stutters. He doesn't have his 4-year-old tendencies. He's not the same thing by any means. He doesn't even have the same DNA. Everyone's DNA is unique, by the way. It's literally how you tell them apart. But they'll be like, no. This is just like the way it was, or it's just an adaptation, guys. It's just, you can't there's some changes you just can't follow the books like, because finding somebody who looks like the part is just so terribly difficult and way too expensive because nobody exists that can match that description in this entire planet. It's just not possible. So, that being said, it's a dumb comparison, I know. I thought of it and it made me kind of like chuckle out loud or like just outburst randomly. But that's essentially what it is. It's saying something you love and something you care about and something you cherish, and they just swap things out, and you're supposed to accept it or you're a bigot. Sorry. And that's where we get Wheel of Time, Lord of the Rings of Prime specifically, all that kind of stuff. We even see it in remakes of games, whether it be Resident Evil or something, like Ada Wong being like conservative. It's Ada Wong. She's not conservative. She's quite free with skin and free with movement. Also, her English voice actress is not that good, but that's a different story. The one that was really bad, I think it was Resident Evil 2 they used her on. But needless to say, circle back because I'm a long-winded person and it's as difficult for me to concisely do things because I get snagged by the next topic. Needless to say, they could make more money by doing it smarter. You can offer things at lower price and sell a higher volume of units in order to make more money than if you sell less units at a higher price. That's how maths works. So, ultimately speaking, Nintendo had a chance to do this. Now, do I think the 450 is justified? Kind of. I'm leaning more in favor that the 450 is justified, specifically because of all the goodies. I do think that they should have put microphones on your controllers, whether it be on a Joy-Con or something. Probably one on each of the Joy-Cons, that when you're playing in Joy-Con mode, like the little small version, rather than the actual controller, when you have like 4 people or whatever, each microphone would pick up for that. Rather than having just the mic on the system, because that's just kind of weird. And how it picks out sounds, I don't know, but if it does, it does, and that's cool. Now, The biggest issue I have with the 450 price is it's not complete backwards compatibility. There's literally no reason that you could not have it software compatible with Switch. It should be completely backwards compatible with every game they've ever made on Nintendo, because it's a whole catalog that they could just digitize and then put it on a cart and sell it to you. It's literally printing money. They don't even have to update it. They could just sell you the old version and then be able to play it on a new system. Or they could go the extra mile, put a little bit of time and effort into it and money, and give you a updated version of it where it's in a higher resolution. So instead of like 480p or something, it's in 1080p. And you could have it automatically stretched to the widescreen or something. Or, it's a little touched up or whatever. Why would you not want to pay them tons of money for that? Now, imagine they do that. Let's say they remake GoldenEye. We know that you can play GoldenEye on the Switch because it's on the Switch Online emulator. So if you took the Switch Online emulator game for James Bond GoldenEye, put it on a cart, and sold it to people in physical media, you'd sell a bunch. But if you just put it on a thing that you pay a monthly fee for or a yearly membership for, you're not making as much money. Now, I get that they're going for the long term, but if you have a physical copy, no one's going to buy it, blah, blah, blah. I get that. Live service stuff needs to stop. It really does. I get it for things like Mario Kart and being able to connect to other people and playing online. Sure. That's a server thing. No problems with that. But if the entire game itself is based around live service, they need to stop, because it's ruining the rest of the gaming industry, and it's just not healthy in general. So, growing pains, sure. It's not a growing pain. I'd rather suffer for a year or two, or maybe even a decade, to get something really, really wowzers. They're not doing that. They're only sinking the industry. And once everything goes digital, I'm sorry, I'm not buying your stuff. A lot of people will not buy your stuff. And hopefully, not just myself, but hopefully most people would be able to go in and say, you know what? I may be young, but I'm not stupid. I may be a teenager and, 10 years from down the future or whatever, but I'm not completely retarded, and I understand that I will not own this in the future. So I'm not going to buy it, because I actually respect myself enough to say I'm not going to give you $80 or even $60 for digital games. Retarded. I'm not going to give you $60 to potentially never own this, or to potentially lose it one day when your servers go down or your license gets revoked. Looking at you, Sony. And you just can't have it anymore. That's ridiculous. So, no, I'm not all about that. So, other things, the GameCube controller looks freaking cool. Even if I don't buy a Switch 2, I'd probably buy the Switch 2 controller. Just because if I do eventually buy a Switch 2, I'd like to have that controller. Now, I've heard slightly disturbing things about that controller. Namely, one being you have to buy it with potentially a Switch console system and have to have been a member of Switch Online for so much of a time period in order to pre-order and everything, which is supposed to help fight scalpers. I get that. That's actually not a bad idea per se. But if the only way you can buy it is with a console, that's not cool. I've been a Switch Online person for several years now. I'm cool if that's the requirement, because I can buy one. I don't want to buy a whole console just to get the controller. If I just want the controller, I can buy the console literally whenever. Even if they go into shortage, by the time I actually find the funds or the interest to buy it, it'll be back in stock. Or I can go down to my local game store and somebody's probably traded it in and buy it, because somebody's just like, I've already had my fun with it. I'm done. Whoopity-doo. They're always available. Do you know how many Switches were available even in the downtime period where they like, oh, we don't have enough Switches? There were tons. Tons. So that's not even really that much of an issue. They can also control the stock a lot better because we don't have the entire microchip crisis that we did, I think, when Switch 1 was coming out and everything. And my thought is that if Switch 2 OLED's coming out, because you can bet your bottom dollar they're going to make another Switch 2 OLED, it's probably in 2 to 4 years from now when they're going to pop out a Zelda game, a new Zelda game. What it's going to be called, no idea. It's probably not going to be like Tears of the Kingdom. It's not going to be like Breath of the Wild. It's not going to be like any of the old ones. It's going to be a totally different style, totally different world, all that kind of stuff. But when that comes out, that'll be the flagship to drop with the OLED, probably. Outside of Mario, which Mario Kart's already getting the Switch 2 as it is now, I cannot think of anything that would get the flagship other than Zelda. Because not much else is that big. Like, yeah, Donkey Kong might have been gone for a while, and they have that one coming out for was it Donkey Kong Bonanza? That's not a flagship title. It's been a while and a hot time coming, but it's not a title game. Like, it's not a flagship game. It's a big title because Donkey Kong's a big brand, but it's not a Mario. It's not a Zelda. Metroid's fantastic, but it's not a Zelda. It's not a Mario. It doesn't sell as well. But I can't think of anything other than a Zelda game that would really sell an OLED, which means they're going to come out with like an OLED edition of it and whatnot. It's going to be expensive because it's an OLED, which means it's going to be bigger, better. Everything is going to be supposedly better than the prior version. So is it worth just waiting 2 to 4 years to get the OLED by paying a little bit more, but getting something like a Zelda exclusive special version of it or something like that? I don't know. I really want to play the Switch 2, but with the backwards compatibility is really a large barrier for me. I have a lot of Switch games. And yes, I want to play games with my friends. I want to play the Mario Kart world. I want to play all that kind of stuff. That's a huge barrier. Not being able to go back and play the games I actually paid a ton of money for over the years. Especially, like, let's imagine you bought a game a month ago before the Nintendo Direct. Or before the Nintendo Direct that we had a month ago. Let's say you bought it right before that. And you can't return it for whatever reason. Maybe it's just outside of the range. So a couple months ago. You now have literally wasted money because it's possible that game is not compatible. What happens if you go to like PlayAsia and you buy something from like a Japan or an independent indie type of developer or publisher or whatever, and it's not ESRB rated? It's literally just a game that you can play on the Switch. Well, guess what? Those probably aren't going to be on Switch 2 compatible wise. Why? We don't know. What does Switch 2 not have that Switch 1 does have? Because if the hardware is better, it can run everything on Switch. The Switch 1 can. And wouldn't it be even more of a driving point to say, yeah, you have bought a lot of Switch games. So to thank you for that, we're going to release a backwards compatibility Switch 2. And then we're going to give you more games to purchase at your leisure. Because they're not going to be able to force you to buy their games. So ultimately, what's the point? Because that backwards compatibility is what's killing me right now. Like, everything else, I don't particularly care. Like, I'll pay $80 for a game if I like it. Because my value of a game is going to be based upon what I think I can get out of it. Can I get fun out of it? Then I will find value in it. And I will put value into it. Will I not find it? Will I not have fun with it? Then I'm probably not going to buy it. Because I don't want to waste my time. Or my money. But are they going to take games like Witcher 3? Because right there, Witcher 3 for Switch. Are they going to make that upscale to the 4K res? Are they going to do a patch for that or something? Are they going to re-release it? I mean, I could imagine they would do that because it's a very popular, well-selling game. Why wouldn't you? There's no reason not to, Nintendo. Or CD Projekt Red, or whoever has the say in whether or not it comes back. There's literally no reason to not give you the top tier that I can think of, anyway, specifically. Like, I think if I'm going to put the money and the investment into a Switch 2, they'd have to put some fire games out. Like, I'm talking, yeah, you think Mario Kart World is fire? No, 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 that's peanuts. You'd have to put Time Splitters, the entire series, remastered onto the Switch 2. That will get me to buy it, even without the backwards compatibility. Granted, if they had backwards compatibility, I'd have that because it's on GameCube. 2 and 3 is at least. I think 1 might be. I don't remember. I haven't got to play 1 because it's stupid hard to find. But essentially, that would get me to do it. That would be the crazy me going like, yeah, I'm buying this now. Like, I need some Time Splitters in my life, and if I get my hands on, let's say, an Xbox Series X, I will be playing the snot out of my Xbox version of that game to no end, potentially no end. Asterisk, because eventually there will be, an end because I have other things to do. But I will play the snot out of it. I will play the snot out of the Star Wars Battlefront games, the 2005 Pandemic ones, not the DICE versions. DICE makes good graphics, not so great game systems. That's a different story, but we're not going to go there. I'm trying to make this as concise as possible because I'm sorry. I'm not good at this. I'm bad at my job. It's not even my job. I don't get paid for it. Needless to say, you came in for my personality. No, you didn't. Anyway, so other things, whether it be the controller being exclusive or whatnot, I want to get it one way or the other, just because GameCube controllers are the best. And you'd think Super Smash Bros. Would be coming out. Doesn't look like they have any sign of that. So maybe the Super Smash Bros. Game is the flagship game for the OLED. That might not be a bad one to get, but I think still the better look would be Zelda. So I'm holding down hope it's a Zelda game for OLED that comes with the system, and the system is customized like they did for the Switch 1, for I think it was Breath of the Wild or whatever. Did they do a Switch 2 OLED or Switch 1 OLED for Tears of the Kingdom? I don't remember. I cannot recall. I already had a Switch at that point, and it was kind of like, well, why would I upgrade to a Switch OLED when I have a Switch already? Because then I'd have to find somebody to buy my Switch for a reasonable price that would let me buy the OLED at a reasonable price. And it just seemed a little annoying because then all the stuff, like the Joy-Cons, are smaller and bigger, and it was more of a headache. So I just went out and I bought this. Bought this instead. Because it can play games on it at 720p. I'm pretty sure like the Switch, but it looks a lot nicer. The battery's better, I believe, if I recall correctly, depending on the game you're playing. And the games that you can play on it are infinitely better looking and infinitely better quality than a Nintendo game typically is. I can play Witcher on my Steam Deck. I can play Skyrim on my Steam Deck, which I have both of those for Steam as well, or for Switch 1 as well. There's so much I can do with it, and I already own literally thousands of games on my Steam account, not including the physical stuff in my room, my basement, whatever. The amount of games I have in my house physically, I would say is ungodly, but God would be impressed probably. I don't know. The only people I think that could have more games than me in my house is probably the people selling them, and they don't keep them. They sell them. I'm not selling my games. So I think the one time I've ever actually done a trade-in was literally a trade for Pokemon Diamond and Pearl to get Pokemon Platinum, because Platinum is superior in every way possible. It was also bloody expensive at the time. And my young self, who didn't have a Pokemon game of his own because I wasn't allowed to play Pokemon as a kid because lots of reasons, or not really lots of reasons, a couple of reasons that I'm not going to go into. Needless to say, I thought they were different games. They're the same game, just with different creatures in them. So I was like, I feel really stupid, but Platinum has all of them, so it's the better upgrade. Maybe one day I'll go back and get Diamond and Pearl, but I have Brilliant Diamond, I think, on the Switch 1, which, besides the chibi characters, it's not bad. Um, yeah, it's there's so much you can do and so many consoles. PC is obviously superior. And I mean, with this, you literally have a portable PC that can play stuff anywhere you are. And once I get a cell phone, I can. I got this crappy S10 Plus. Once I get a cell phone that has good wireless hotspot type stuff, I can literally play that sucker because mine's literally one generation outside. Like, it's literally the UCN code of the freaking phone in its own family is one spot right below where it actually does. So my wife and I both, or I bought my wife and I both an S10 Plus back in the day. Hers broke, but I got her a different one. She has an S20, I think, now, of some sort. And we both had S10s. Her S10 would work with Wi-Fi on my devices. Mine would not. That's how stupid phones are. But now I have to buy 2 new phones because her phone's having problems, my phone's having problems, and that's going to be a couple $100. So do I buy 2 new cell phones or do I buy a Switch 2? I use my phone a lot for keeping up with news, keeping up with family, friends, all that kind of stuff, taking pictures of my kids, all that kind of stuff. Like, can't do that with a Switch. But my kid likes to play Mario Kart with me, a 4-year-old, and he's actually not bad for a 4-year-old. He's not the great, but he's not bad. He's never going to beat me, let's put it that way. In his wildest dreams. He'll have to be like 30 years old before he can beat me. And that's mostly because my hands will be gone by that point, probably. So, I'm torn. There's also been like the key code cards, which have they're literally just CD key cartridges. That's literally what they are. So if you don't know what a CD key is, on old school PC games back in the olden days, whether it be Diablo or Battlefield Earth, whatever the case might be, PC games had CD keys, and it was a printed out key code. It had letters and numbers mixed up in different variations and forms, and you could basically create infinite amounts of these. And then you would print them on the paper, and it would go with the CD that key is attached to. Don't ask me how they manufactured it this way. I have no idea. They did. It's a miracle that they did. But it was basically so you couldn't just have everybody burn a copy of the game onto your, because I mean they had like the way to prevent people from burning it on there. Like CD cracks got around that, but they're like, well, a CD code you can't get, or a CD key you can't get around. It's like, actually you can't. They're called CD key generators, but they always counted as viruses or whatever. I'm old, whatever. But yeah, so like you had all these CD keys, and then they're like, you know what? It's the year 2025. We're Nintendo. You know what we need? CD keys that haven't been seen in the PC world in decades. And they're allegedly only going to be put on games that are too large to fit on a cartridge. Instead of just saying, let's look up a new compression system that which we can make unique for Nintendo, or maybe make a unique one that everybody else has to pay us absorbent amounts of money or fees or whatever to utilize themselves. Let's use key codes. Why? Because people want physical. You made a system that can do some crazy stuff. Why not make a cartridge that can do some crazy stuff? Because at this point, if reading and writing fast is all you can do, that's crazy. It's not that impressive. I mean, it's impressive, but it's not that impressive. It's not impressive like, hey, we took Skyrim and compressed it and then compressed it again, this being Bethesda, and made it fit on a Switch cartridge. And it plays really, really, really well. Now, granted, it is an old game. Not denying that. But they compressed a lot of gigabytes into one of those carts. And at the time, it was super impressive because they were like, it's too big to fit on a cart. And they managed to figure a way to compress it down into that cart. That's something Nintendo should be doing. They actively should be working on that in development in the background. Be like, we need to make our carts freaking better. And then as soon as those carts become better, they take all those big ones and put them on there. I want a free cart. Or I want my full cart with everything on it. I don't want a free cart. I mean, yes, free carts are nice. I want the physical game. Now, there's a couple things. So you have your Switch 1 games, which are the same size as Switch 2 games. They're black versus Switch 2, which is red. Don't know why. It doesn't make sense. Whatever. But then on top of that, you have the opposite effect of things. You have the writing and reading speed. The external micro SD card you put into your Switch One, which I have like a 512, I think, in there or something like that. Maybe a 1 terabyte. I don't remember what it was. I think it's 512 is the biggest I could go without it not reading it. That doesn't work on the Switch 2. You have to have a very specific one, which is the XD, I want to say, or XCD, or whatever it's called. I don't dink around with micro SD cards very often. But you have to have the specific micro SD card or XSD card. You can't just do the micro XSD card that they have out for Switch 1. It has to be a very specific one. That's weird, but whatever. So you're like, okay, what else is different? Well, you have the Switch 2 game. You have the Switch 2 upgrade, which means you have the Switch game, and then you pay for the upgrade, and you just get like an updated version, and you pay probably 10, 20 bucks, whatever the case might be. I don't know. I'm not going to do it. And then from there, you have the key card, which is just literally this little card. You pop in, it accesses the game through the server for you to download. But you can't play the game without that key card in your system. Now, I'm wondering if it's possible for people to hack that key card, get that code, and put it on multiple things. Because if you can like copy it onto another card, I can already take this key card and give it to my buddy. My buddy can take it on his. Ta-da! We both have it downloaded. He can't access it while I have the card, and I can't access it while he has the card. But what if I duplicate the card? Or what if I go find my other buddies and we just find a whole bunch of people, and there's a whole market full of people that are selling these carts with key card codes on them, or key codes on them, and then they just sell them a random one, because usually you can't play two at the same time or whatever the case might be. For like CD keys, that was the way it was. So if you wanted to play with somebody in the same lobby, you couldn't have the same CD key code. Well, we got around that by generators, and the fact that there was just a vast volume of keys going around. You didn't play online very often. You played more like local LAN parties, like for Age of Empires 2 or Halo or whatever the case might be, because Halo was on PC and I have it. But yeah, you would have this to get around it. So what if that happens? I don't know. I'll take a free game. I'm not going to pay you for a downloadable game, though. I'm not going to. I will pay you for a physical game that you cannot take away, and that is fully on the cartridge. It's one thing to have additional updates and things like that you're going to make like a hot patch or a quick patch to a game, and it has to have an update. Personally, that patch should be written onto the cart as soon as it's updated, so it's always up to date. So if whatever the case might be, let's say Nintendo disappeared from the earth for whatever reason, they broke down, they sold off, or whatever, the servers went down, you'd have the full game on there. That's what should happen. Not this, oh, well, you can only download it. That's stupid. But then again, I don't think these companies care enough about you or me to be like, we want to do this for the gamers. They don't care. They might say they care. They might think they care. They don't care. And when I was watching the Nintendo Direct, which again, linked down below, I noticed that there is this, like, Japanese culture is very polite. It's very nice. But their culture is different. And with this different culture, how they think things should be done is going to be different than how you and I might think that something would be done. So they're not going to value the same things we value. And if I went to a Japanese person and said, here, I'll sell you this car, and they're like, oh, okay, and they buy the car from me. Then I show up at their house and I take the car away. And they say, hey, I paid for that car. Well, you did, but you only actually licensed it, and you don't own it. You never owned it. Well, I purchased it. It said purchase. Well, that's not what the word means. I think they would be furious. I think anybody would be furious, because that's how communication works. Like, if you tell somebody you're purchasing something, it means you're purchasing it. It's a permanent thing. They can't just walk into your house and take it away. They can't go into your parking lot, driveway, garage, whatever the case might be, and just take your vehicle. And you can't just be like, I'm going to purchase something. Like they need to change. I think they were working on like making a law of whether or not purchases equal actual purchases, or if they have to be license or rent or whatever the case. I think license is a really dumb word to use, even though if it is the actual term used. I think it's bad specifically because it's not a word a lot of people are familiar with. You usually have to be on the know or in the know to know what exactly it means and what it implies, etc. Rent is something everyone understands. If I go to a car rental place and I'm renting a car, I know I'm renting the car and not purchasing it. They're not going to sell me a car for $300. That's worth tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars. That's just not going to happen. So it's a lease or it's a rental, sure. But if it says purchase or buy and they sell it to me for $300, sorry, I'm keeping it because it says purchase or buy. That's how language works. You cannot argue that, oh, well, but it's actually valued at more, so it doesn't matter what the word says. No, 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 no. If somebody's house is valued at $6 million and they're renting it out to me, but they put purchase or buy on that, it's sucker's mine. End of discussion. It doesn't matter what the rest of it says because that's what the word means. Now, you can disagree. You can have a different opinion or take on that. That's fine. That doesn't change anything. Like, if I say, I want to buy this from you, and you say, sure, and then I purchase it. Buy and purchase, big words there, keywords. And then I walk away. You can't walk up behind me, oh, now you have to give it back. No, I don't. I am under no obligation to give that back to you. I think the Japanese can understand this concept, which is why it's shocking that Sony doesn't get it and Nintendo doesn't get it. And this is why I think licensing and all that kind of stuff, like copyrights and trademarks and stuff, get really irritating. Mostly copyright, mostly licensing. Because if somebody has a game that they release and then all of a sudden they lose the license, they can't sell the game anymore. It's like, no. The license should apply to anything that you made while under that license, or a movie that you made while under that license. It should not apply to future stuff, but it should apply to all stuff made under, like, let's say when EA, Electronic Arts, back when they're Electronic Arts and not just EA, when Electronic Arts / EA, whatever I'm going to call them, made the Battle for Middle Earth games. And then they also made a bunch of Lord of the Rings games, etc., and whatever. At some point, they lost the license to make those games. And so they could not sell them anymore. And they basically become abandonware. Now, when the Lego Lord of the Rings games came out, I don't remember who made them, but they basically couldn't sell the games anymore. So they had to basically just dump their stock on everybody because they lost the license. They can't sell it. So then you have a bunch of retail places that have just a bunch of stock. And so like Five Below had a whole bunch of the Nintendo DS Lord of the Rings, Lego Lord of the Rings games. So I bought a couple copies. They were $5 a piece. I collect Lord of the Rings stuff. Buy one to play, buy one to keep. Sealed. Why not? But it's this concept where, well, now you can't have this stuff. And I don't understand that. So the leasing, the licensing, all that stupid, like, term, like, not the leasing, the licensing, it's stupid, it's silly, it's obviously trickster language for the average Joe. There's the legal aspects and whatnot, but copyrights have withheld so much progression, like true progression, not like progressive for the sake of being progressive kind of stuff. Like actual, like, we could have higher tier compression systems. We could have higher tier quality vehicles. We could have a whole bunch of stuff if people weren't like, well, you can't have it exactly the same as mine. Well, I can't use your brand. I can't make a game and slap EA on it and make you think I am EA when I sell it because I'm using EA's logo and their stuff. Sure, that makes sense. Trademark, whatever. Depends on what the trademark is. But if I go out and I say, well, I own or these guys own a Lord of the Rings license, I'm going to make Lord of the Rings. Well, you can't unless you pay for it completely out of your pocket and give it away for free. Not a cheap way to do that, so nobody does it. Well, let's think about this for a second. That's retarded. Put it bluntly. Because the best way to make progression, and this is similar to a lot of things in this world where a lot of growing pains, things will hurt before they get better. So let's put it this way. Let's say EA goes out there and let's say they have a license. I don't know who currently has I mean, Warner Bros has the license for certain things. I don't know who has the game license for Lord of the Rings IP. But let's say EA does. And somebody goes out, or let's say EA goes out and is making a game, and it's a terrible Lord of the Rings game, because EA's terrible. Let's be honest. They're putting advertisements and commercials and ad breaks and all different types of things. Everything's locked behind a paywall, blah, 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 blah. Well, let's say I come along and I'm like, you know what? I want to make a Lord of the Rings game similar to what they're making, but I'm going to make it better without the ad breaks, without the advertisements, without any of the purchasable stuff. Like, it's all stuff you unlock in the game. And I'm going to also sell it for cheaper than what they're doing. And I'm going to make it better graphics. I'm going to make it better gameplay. I'm going to make a better story. I'm going to have this huge world, whatever, blah, blah, blah. If I don't have the copyright or the license or whatever, I cannot make that. Now, if this was not an issue, I could make that. And then now EA has to compete with me. And if they say, well, I'm not going to make it, okay, that's fine. Somebody else will, because it's a free-for-all type of thing. Now, you could say, well, they're going to have a whole bunch of random Joes popping up and making these slop games. Well, yes, but when you have slop games, you have review systems, and the review systems tell you, don't buy this game, it's terrible. Other people will say, no, it's great. And you're going to have to fight and figure out those types of details, but that's usually when you see gameplay. That's why you have YouTube and other things like Rumble or whatever. Use those types of tools you have to figure out and make your own decisions. And yes, you might get 160 million different Lord of the Rings games in 1 year. I don't really see that as a bad thing if they're good. But you can choose what you want to buy or what you don't want to buy. You can say, well, this game has a good reputation. Let's say Larian Studios decides to make a Lord of the Rings game that's a turn-based D&D style. I'd buy the snot out of that because I know they're going to respect the material. At least so far. Maybe by the time that happens, they'll have a different crew and they might not. Looking at UCD Project Red. And, you know, whoever makes good quality stuff is who you give your money to. Everybody else will lose money. And so they'll stop making slop. But at first, slop will come out because they'll all try to, like, jump on a title. But those who make the better game for the better pricing and the better experience for the consumer will make more money by default. That's how this works. I want good quality content. I assume you want good quality content. So if you want good quality content and I want good quality content, and we can't get that behind every license that there is, why are we trying to support this? I don't really like it. I get that it's the legal system as it is. I'm saying it needs to change. It's not going to change probably anytime soon, but that it should, because we could be getting amazing stuff. We could get around the DEI stuff. We could get around any woke content easily by doing that. If somebody's making a new IP or whatever and it has a time period where they have to have it, whatever, it's their product or whatever. But if it's something like Lord of the Rings, which has been around for a long time, I can't even remember the actual like release date of the first ones. But point being, published specifically, it's been around a long time. So people should be able to start making it. And if it's any product, and I mean this very seriously, any product that is not actively being sold is up for grabs. So if, I don't know, Naughty Dog is doing The Last of Us Part 1 and Part 2, but then PS6 they're not, if you're going to make a Last of Us Part 1 and 2 and remake 2 into a better game, that's the time to do it, because they're not selling it. That's their fault. Now, if they are selling it, well, you can't do anything about it because they're selling it. It's their product, whatever. But as soon as they stop, as soon as it becomes abandonware, as soon as it becomes something they don't support anymore, that's their fault. They need to make content within a certain time period, a couple years, sure, whatever, before it's just like, hey, it's open for everyone now. It's a free for all. Let the games begin, pun intended, and let everybody just go out there and do stuff. I get that this isn't going to be a popular idea, probably, and I get that most people will laugh at me and just think, "Oh, that's not going to ever happen." Well, I can dream. I think that would be more beneficial for not just video games, but also movies, books, pretty much anything. Because as soon as someone gets lazy, looking at you, George R. R. Martin, and people want more of your books, and you're not giving them the ability to read those books, letting them create their own books and letting people buy those books because of popularity or whatever the case might be, would solve a lot of problems. For example, Wheel of Time. I'm going to make this as brief as possible. Wheel of Time, the show, terrible. Wheel of Time books, fantastic. But they're over, and we want more content. We can't get more content because, unfortunately, Robert Jordan passed away. Brandon Sanderson's not going to get hired to do more, and I don't think they had any more notes or anything, but having somebody come in and follow the patterns that Robert Jordan set down for the character personalities and whatnot, and then creating more stories about Perrin, more stories about Matt, which is what I want to hear about or read about, what happened with Rand in the aftermath, what happens to the world after those characters are gone, and repeating the cycle until it literally just comes back around and repeats all over again. We could get a lot more stories and a lot more books out of that, but we can't. Now, in the world where the people like the show, I don't understand how you could possibly like it, but then again, I have standards. It's a failing of mine. Let's say they were like, "Oh, this is great. This is better than the books." Let them write a book that's just like the show. It'll be inconsistent. It'll be terrible. It'll be slop. But let them have it. Why not? Because I'll be able to make a TV series, and it's going to be based off the books, and it's going to be fire compared to what the slop we got now. I am thoroughly convinced a 2-year-old, nay, an infant, a newborn, could make better material for Wheel of Time than what we have right now on Amazon. Not even joking. Like, it's that bad. But this isn't about Wheel of Time. But that's when we talk about IPs and stuff. So let's get back to Nintendo, because we're going to wrap it up here. I know, I'm a short-winded person. So, let's say these little key codes, their benefit over just pure download. Download will be for one person on one account. They can download it as many times as they want until it goes away. Key code, you can download to multiple people. Multiple people can play the game. It's like a physical game. It's just not on the cart, and it requires a download. Which even full games on carts still have to do updates and stuff through the system, so that's not anything particularly new. But again, like I said, the updates should go onto the cart. It should have a two-way read-write system, and the updates for that game, like it identifies the game and says there's an update patch, it should update it. Granted, it should have also an option that you can go back and forth. Steam does this, where Steam has, you can go to different versions of the game. So like Stellaris, for example, is an ever-changing game. It's constantly evolving. And they're trying to make it better and better and better until they can find that perfect sweet spot. But as they're adding more content, whenever, until they make a Stellaris 2 or something else, they're going to keep updating it. But if you like a specific build, you can go to that specific build and play that game. Doesn't matter if they update the game. You can just go back, reinstall that version, and play it. Granted, there is no physical copy of Stellaris that is in existence, as I am aware. But odds are, because their entire company is digital, they're probably going to be around for a hot minute. Now, as soon as they're not, that's going to be an unfortunate experience, and that's why you typically go to GOG.com, and you get it there, because then it's DRM free, and you can download it, and you own it permanently. Now, my challenge, Steam, you me, Steam. Hearing time. So I ask my 4-year-old, where are your listening ears? Steam, if you make all games DRM required, DRM free, I should say, DRM free required, so every game on Steam is DRM free by default, you will be the industry stupid giant killers. Like, you will just absolutely wipe the floor with anybody and everybody. I'm not even talking, like, this would be the #1 selling system in a heartbeat. And then as you make newer versions of this, which you have the OLED, which I'm still a little salty about, so we have problems with that still. Or anything, whether it be the Steam Deck 2, the Steam Deck 10, whatever down the road, that can handle basically a full power of a PC in a little handheld like that, you would knock it out of the park and destroy any possibility console could ever stand up to you. Or you would force every single one of those consoles to put all their stuff DRM free and have it on the actual cart or disc. And if they didn't, they'd go obsolete eventually. Why would I pay for a digital download when I could have the digital download plus be able to keep it on my account for literally ever? There's no logical answer for that. But I digress. Steam, you know what to do. You got this. You've been making waves. You know what to do. Now, for the downloads for the key codes, the key code is a little bit more universally applied. It's more useful than a download. It's explicitly a download, but it's $10 more. You're paying $10 for a cartridge with a key code on it and a physical case. I just want the physical copy. Put the key code on the physical copy. But you don't need a key code on the physical copy. It's all on the key code. It's all on the cart. It's all there. Needless to say, after an hour of this, almost an hour and a half, I have a lot of concerns with the Switch 2. My biggest concern, bar none, backwards compatibility. Nothing else is close. I do understand and realize that the GameCube emulation for the Switch Online expansion pack will only be available on the Switch 2. I get that. I'm actually fine with that because I don't think that the Switch 1 hardware could handle it, to be honest, to be frank. But I'm not frank, I'm Doman. Now, Switch 2, it makes sense. It's the same thing. You can't get emulators for 360 and whatnot on these tiny little emulator handhelds. You just can't because they're too big, they're too bulky, they burn too much power. Until we come out with like nuclear fusion or nuclear fission, whatever it's called, and you can basically take the size of a nuclear power plant and put it into a freaking, or at least a moderate size power plant, and pack it down into like an engine where you could drive your car literally forever without having to ever like charge it or refill it or anything, but it'd be completely clean energy and whatever. Yeah, like you're not gonna be able to do that. But if you did manage to do that, like say you got into a chip and you put that chip into a freaking game, it'd be ridiculous in a good way. Cheers to the future. But yeah, I'm the price point's not as big of an issue to me as backwards compatibility is. Just being honest. If they come out and say, "Oh, we actually misspoke. It actually has complete backwards compatibility," I'm like, "Okay, now you've got my attention." But at this point, I'm not seeing that, and that I feel like should have been something that said, "We're going to announce this game, or not game. We're going to announce this system, and we're going to pop out immediately with like, hey, we're coming out with a list of all the compatible games that will be on it." They have the Switch 2. I'm sure they've been using it to demo stuff. So they could go through all the games and just put them in. Download the stuff. It works. Next one. Download the thing. Play it. Next one. Download it. You don't have billions of games, Nintendo. You have a limit. There is a limit, and it's a reasonable limit. And it's the Switch. You're supposed to be releasing more Switch 2 games than you ever made Switch games. That's impressive. So covering the stuff from Switch shouldn't be that difficult. Adding the eShop from the Nintendo DS or the 3DS with all the emulators and stuff from Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance, all that type of stuff, all the digital stuff you sold should easily be able to fit on your Switch 2 with no issues. It might take a ton of hard drive space or micro SD space. That's fine. Let people make that decision on their own. They can make a cart instead of a micro SD that is a storage thing for it specifically, and then just give them the option to slop that in and out for emulations or whatever. Give us back the Wii U and the Wii shops. Not necessarily. I mean, it would make no sense not to sell it, because anything that comes on the Switch 2, you should be remastering or making better, so they can choose between the old version, which they'll buy, or the new version, which they'll buy. They're buying it either way. It doesn't make sense. Yoshi doesn't understand why you're being this stubborn and difficult. And I'm trying to stay polite because I like the Japanese culture. I like Japan. I like Nintendo to some extent. I can't stand executives that don't understand gamers. That's my ultimate finale figuring out things. I don't know. I'm still kind of stressed I lost a video. So, needless to say, there's things that they can do to make this better. Do I think that we can make it better? Yes. Do I think they will? Probably not. Would it be smart for them to do so? Absolutely. So, at this point, we don't know, and I am just gonna probably wait and see. They went from me being like day one, buy it obviously as soon as it's available, to now like, should I just wait for the OLED or the more advanced, more powerful version of it? Because there's a more powerful version coming in a couple of years. I don't know the difference between the Switch 1 and the OLED time period, but I don't think it was too far apart, like maybe 2 to 4 years. But if that's the case, then I don't know. I just don't know. So, I know I rambled, guys. I can't apologize because it's just me. That's just how I operate. But I appreciate you if you had stuck with me this long. I want to know what you guys think in the comments down below. Give me a thumbs up or thumbs down, whichever you think is worth. I'd love to hear your thoughts and comments, and whether you like, agree, disagree, hate, whatever I say. Doesn't matter. I want to know what your thoughts are. What would you do instead of Nintendo? What would you do? Or what would you, if you were in my shoes, think about this? Is this as big of a deal as you might not, or might think, or might not think? If you had a whole bunch of Switch games, like a massive library of 40 plus games, would you be willing to like not use them? Because one could argue you can use the Switch 1 still. Like, yeah, I can still use my Switch, but I have to pay $70 to get the fan fixed. That's another $70. But if I have a Switch 2 and I can just put the carts fit and the hardware is good, I can just put them in my Switch 2. And also carrying stuff, I don't have to carry a Switch 1 and a Switch 2 to play my games. I could carry just a Switch 2. So there's so many possibilities. And I don't know what they want, but I mean, they want money. I don't know why they're going about this way. Like, they need to really, really rethink this. Like, they should have thought of the financial structure well before they thought of the actual like structure of the system. But they needed to update. So Switch 2 is a good update in all reality. I just don't know why they're limiting them. Like, they're saying, we have a problem. This stuff will work, but we're going to make a problem so it won't work. So I need you guys to give us more money so that a decade from now we'll give you eventually the thing that we should have given you right now, that we have the capacity to give you right now. But whatever. So, thanks everybody for hanging out. I know this is a bit of a weird one comparative to what I normally do. Mostly because I usually have the Council of Light, but I'm trying to do my best to get you guys some extra videos if possible, but they're going to be few and far between until my life normalizes to some extent, and at the moment that's not really normalizing. But yes, I will hopefully have everything going, and still deciding on whether or not I want to redo that episode I missed, or the review episode for Wheel of Time if I missed, or if I want to just go to the next one because it wasn't a good episode. So, I mean, I can give you the reasons. I just re-recording it's going to be difficult because it was like a 2-hour thing with two of us, and then the guys were like, well, what if all three of us did it? And I'm like, that'd be like 3 hours. So we can do it quick. We don't do anything quick. But yeah, I have some of the best guys to do record with, and I am grateful every time they give me their time and their energy. So they are appreciated, and you guys, the viewers, you are appreciated, and I greatly thank you for being here, and hopefully you'll pop in for the next one. So thanks everybody for hanging out. Take care, and remember, walk in the light, my friends.